Hey everyone, welcome back to Non-Professional. So it's been a little while since I've uploaded like a new video. I've been reissuing a bunch of my old videos because I really haven't been having time to create videos, unfortunately, but I'm going to try to get back into it. Now that we've rebranded and now that we're non-professional, I really want to focus a little bit on creativity, so we'll be doing a whole lot of different things, and I've got a whole lot of things planned. I'm really excited for this, especially this new year in 2020. But I will still be sticking back to art, and art will still be a big part of this channel because art is closely linked to creativity, and that's what we're doing today. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about illustration process. As in today's video particularly, we're going to be talking about coloring. I'm going to be talking about the difference, the pros and cons basically between traditional coloring, which is basically what I do, and digital coloring, which is something that I am capable of doing, but I actually prefer traditional. But I am not here to say, let's just put a disclaimer here, I'm not here to say that any of these two are better than each other. It's just your preference, and my preference is traditional. We're gonna go back to I think when I think of traditional art, I just think of watercolor art or painted art. You know, that's like the traditional right there. But before we get into it, I just want to show you what I'm drawing here. This is going to be like a test page for a new comic project that I'm working on. I'm still trying to figure out the ropes of how am I going to color this thing, and watercolor is a possible coloring method, and I've done a lot of digital coloring in the past. But I think I'm going to stick to the traditionals now. So let's refocus. So the watercolor that we're going to be using today is the Reeves watercolor. It doesn't really matter what watercolor you do. This is not really a tutorial. This is more of taking a look at the differences. And basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a blue watercolor and I'm going to be mixing it in this palette here. And I'm also going to be testing colors in this scrap piece of paper over here. And just seeing, I'm gonna start with a very light wash just to begin with. As you can see, I'm starting very light. One of the things I really wanted to do with this project, especially, was to tone it. Or you would see that every artist out there, what he does is like he would tone the entire book in this certain palette, whether it be like the entire book is toned in red if it's like a story of you know, some sort of assassin or whatever. Everything is toned in red. I really don't like to do that because I like to have freedom over what colors I want to do. But I decided that I would try to make every scene at least in these tones. So maybe like this chase scene right here, for example, would be entirely in blue, and this is not part of the story. This is just a test page that I'm working on. So let's kick it into time lapse, as Mark Curley likes to say in his speed paint videos. I'm gonna kick it into time lapse, and we're gonna speed paint through this entire part of the watercolor process, and then I'm gonna come back to talk about layering and watercolor. Alright, so I finished that part up, and now I'm going to go in a little bit darker. Hopefully I'm able to go or hopefully you can see here what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to go a little bit darker in terms of especially this foreground character, right? I want it to be a little bit layered, and as you can see, and I think this is a coloring process that many do, and it's just like, you know, the background is paler, and it gives the viewer a little bit more of a sense of what's in the front and what's in the back. I'm going to be going gradually darker with this later with either colored pencil or marker. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to have everything in watercolor. But as you can see, this part has become a lot darker, and I think I went a little bit too far with that, so I'm just going to try to cancel out some of those things. I think I canceled out a little bit too much over there. I'm just gonna come back here and work on his shirt a little. Actually, I don't want his shirt to be too dark, so I'm gonna make the other parts. I think it's just a matter of, I think making art is just a whole bunch of choices, like whether you want this area to be a little bit darker, whether you want that area to be a little bit lighter, or whatever. It's just choices throughout the whole thing. Anyway, we've kind of finished with this. I want to just finish off this with just another light wash on the road. I'm gonna have that. I think that's a little bit too thick. I want it to be a little like washed out kind of feel, and I think that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this drawing right here, trying to create in this style a kind of a washed out feeling, right? And this is what we've gotten so far, and I'm just gonna let this paint dry and we'll come back to talk a little bit more about adding details. Alright, so I think a good part of this area is dry, and now what I want to do is I'm going to add some sort of, because it's raining in this scene, so I kind of want to have some sort of idea, or in the environment that he's in, that it is in fact raining. So I'm going to take a little bit of this red right here. Hopefully it doesn't come out as too thick here. I don't want it to have such a strong color, but I want a more, as I said before, a washed out feel, which is I think if you add more water, it tends to be more washed out in this way. And I don't want it to look exactly like he's walking on like glass or whatever, where you can see like the bottom of this, like, or a mirror or whatever. So I'm gonna have it pushed back a little bit, but it's still looking a bit strong right now, so I can always go back to the blue and just like cover that up a little bit. And as I am speaking right now, it's actually raining outside, so it's I guess it's a fitting drawing to be working on today. But I guess you can see what I'm kind of trying to work with this reflection part. And now, while we wait for that to dry, I actually want to pull out a marker to begin working more on this foreground character. I still don't know what this character is going to be, but I know that he's going to be in the comics, so I want to kind of work out this area a little bit. So I'm going to be taking this marker here to add a little bit more of depth, because I think watercolor is a bit more uncontrollable with the fact that you know, it could splotch everywhere, but I think marker is a little bit more controlled. You just need to get the right shade. And I'm going to work a little bit on his top here. I think that's a little bit too strong up there, so I'm just gonna leave that be. In fact, I'm gonna take some of that out right there. I think what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter on like the edges. That's what I'm trying to do, so it's like the effect of rain or wetness. The whole idea of this illustration right here is wetness, so that's what I'm trying to achieve here. So as we continue with this drawing, I am going to add some final details, and then I think we're pretty much good. And I'm gonna take the markers and I'm gonna just freshen up, tweak things a little bit, and I think we'll be good, and we can move on to the digital part. Alright, so that is the result of our traditional drawing. Obviously, there's more in the comic page. I'll work on that a little bit later, and maybe I'll post it up to the non-professional website. But this is what we got in the video. I don't want this video to drag on for too long, which is why I'm only going to color this panel. But now it is time to move on to the more interesting part, the digital part, and it's definitely the part where I'm just less capable and less skilled in this area, but we're gonna see what happens. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop. So here's the illustration. We're gonna do it really similar to how I did it with the watercolor, except we're gonna be doing it digitally now. So basically what I do when I want to start one of these things is I go to the background layer right here. So if we move to the background layer right here, I duplicate layers and I set it to multiply. But first what we have to do actually is convert it to color. So I'm going to actually turn it to color right now, so we can turn it to color. Now we can duplicate the layer, and this is a background copy. Set this to multiply, and then put the colors underneath. Basically what this is doing is it is setting the line art. So it's like this entire area right here with the character and everything, and we're basically coloring under all these lines. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do basically very similar to what we were doing in the watercolor. I'm gonna pick a light wash to begin with. I don't know why I need to do this. We can always fix that later anyway. But I'm gonna pick a blue-ish kind of a color right here. And basically, I'm just gonna go to my brush tool. I'm gonna enlarge it actually, and I've set the opacity to pretty low. It's actually 27%. So I'm just gonna start drawing around right here. I'm gonna actually
before I do any of this, I am actually going to set my opacity higher because it's not really showing up. So I'm moving it to 50 now. And it doesn't matter that I'm coloring over the character or in the character to begin with, because we can always fix that. I feel like this is my brush is a little bit delayed today. But anyways, I'm just putting this wash all over. Alright, so now that we've got a light wash over, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to lower the opacity and just to see what happens. You can play around with a lot of this. I think that's a pro of digital coloring. There's a lot of stuff you can play around with. And basically what I'm going to do here, I'm going to move to my foreground character just like we did in the traditional one. I'm actually going to create a new layer so that it doesn't interfere with the rest of the drawing, and this is going to be foreground character. And I'm just going to put that layer in there, and I'm actually going to switch to my pencil tool right here because I think the pencil is a bit more precise with what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a slightly darker color, just like we did in the other one, and this actually I think I'm on the wrong pencil right here. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just moving through his coat right here, and I can always fix the areas that I zoom out of color later on. And I'm actually going to find another color for his pants because I don't want it to be in sync with his. I think that's a little bit too dark right there. Undo that, and I think that's a little too dark, so I'm going to move that up a little bit. This penciling, I'm not really keen on preciseness because I can always cut away the edges later. And I'm going to leave his shirt white just like we did, but I'm actually going to move up to his tie here. We add some color to his hands here, you know. Once we zoom out, nothing will really be seen, but I'm going to take a really dark blue one to color in the inside of his jacket. And with that, I think we're good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put another layer for the police siren, whatever this is, like red. I'm just going to put red. And I'm going to set this opacity to 50%. So that it doesn't show up as much, and we're going to just pick a light red somewhere around here, and I'm going to find a red that we can use. We're just going to put that in. And the cool thing about digital coloring is that you can really have a lot of access to different kinds of brushes. As you can see, this red part here is really cool. I think I'm gonna move this opacity of this layer even more back here because I really don't want it to be so strong. I don't want it to be I don't want it to be that strong, and I really want the colors to stand out here, which is why I'm gonna probably move up the opacity over here a little bit more so that we can't really see this red part. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my pencil tool here. So it's basically going to be like that same street scene. Just find that color. Alright, so now that we've created kind of a road scene, in fact, I need to make this road a little bit, I think a tiny bit darker later on. I'm going to add more red, so we're gonna have more red around here. In fact, I'm gonna cancel that. I don't want more red there. In fact, what I want to do over here is I want to add these little streaks right here that make the illustration cool. Little streaks, right? Then turn the opacity of that really low, so but it still kind of looks cool, I feel, with what he's running on, right? So then I'm gonna go back to the road, and I'm going to go back to that blue that we had and just color through that. So basically there we have it. I just want to have one last final touch, and that's just adding a little, because the scan didn't really pick up the rain, so I'm gonna have another layer for the rain, and I am going to set it to about 2, right, and then just start putting in rain just by streaking. And it kind of looks weird right now, right? But it's all about playing with the opacity later on. So we could have one layer of rain right here, and I'm gonna have that, turn the opacity down. Then I can have a second rain layer. So let's put this as rain 2, just like we had the red, right? We had this second red layer. I'm gonna continue again with these streaks, and I'm gonna have that set down again, but not too much, so that we can still see it. I want to make one last finishing touch. Actually, what I want to do is I want to go back to, I'm gonna go to this background copy here. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to just cut out all that color right there. So we kind of had a layer called cleanup, and now with that, we are able to clean up our drawing and not have to worry about all that other color that went in. But basically, what I want to do with this is I'm going to flatten it all out. Then I'm going to select this area. Just move up the levels a little bit, right? We can play with this right here, make all the color a little bit darker. Maybe turn exposure down a little bit, right? Then what I like to do is I like to play with hue and saturation. So as you can see, if we're turning hue that way or that way, we can literally have different kinds of colors that we want it to be, but I'm gonna stick it with this right here, and I'm gonna tone up the saturation quite a bit, and then maybe turn lightness up a little bit as well. And there's just these millions of things that you can play with when it comes to these. And the last thing I want to do is I want to take this selection around here and just make the caption white. And there we go. We have a finished illustration right here, and I think this looks pretty cool. And I think with the digital coloring, we have a lot more options as to what you can fix. You can have a lot of options to what you can play around with, and also you have the layers option, so you can just color on top of it without it being interfered with other layers. But I think overall this is a pretty cool drawing. I'm just going to hit save here. Alright, so I just want to have some final words here about the whole digital and traditional drawing thing. Let's talk about some pros and cons here, right? So I feel that with traditional art, the main pro is that you are able to have a finished color drawing. Like say with traditional coloring, you're able to have a finished drawing right in front of you, whereas in digital coloring, you can only have a copy on your computer, and if you have printed out, it could look different than what you expected, and like with you, and you may not have a color printer to print anyways. And I feel you can have the original drawing, which is really cool in traditional drawing, and it's also a lot quicker than digital coloring. Digital coloring, you have to mess around with the layers and stuff, and it could take a long time to scan. Scanning is just inconvenient, and it could take a long time with this. And I don't want to say that, again, traditional coloring is not better than digital coloring, and digital coloring is not better than traditional coloring. They're just two different methods, right? And I just feel that with traditional coloring, you're able to have your original drawing right there in front of you, colored, everything. You can have it, you can give it to people, like say this was the original drawing or whatever. I just feel that makes it kind of special. With digital coloring, I believe that it's definitely a lot more, you can have a lot more options, especially with your foreground, middle ground, and background. Say you have a lot of options of different things like contrast, exposure. You have a lot of things to play with, like opacity. You can, and there's also the big thing that everybody talks about. It's the undo button on the digital. With digital coloring, you're definitely able to press the undo button and just start all over again. With traditional coloring, you're not really able to do that. And with digital coloring, I feel like you can add a lot more layers. If you continue to add more layers onto your drawing here, I feel like the paper is going to get a little bit like sogged up, especially with watercolors, and sometimes that's the case with markers
as well, but I feel that there is definitely a difference between the two and what results that you can get, and it's all about preference and it's all about your imagination. So I want to thank all of you for watching this video. Thanks for stopping by Non-Professional. Hope you will go check out my website where you can find more of my art. I'll definitely be scanning this artwork in, and I'll probably be finishing this artwork at some point as well, and you can go check out the finished digital art. You can compare them easier, and I want to thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram, and we've got more videos coming your way, so don't unsubscribe or anything like that. Like, just because the drawing live is over doesn't mean this channel's over. So thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time.